Supporting and funding entrepreneurs is a terrific way to accelerate economic development in a community. And our guest is the co-founder of a startup incubator and innovation hub focused on helping entrepreneurs and innovators to develop world-class companies to serve businesses, governments, and people. And by the way, this incubator is located in a city just south of Boston, known as the birthplace of some amazing, famous founders and innovators. From the United States founding fathers, John Adams and John Hancock, to Howard Johnson's ice cream parlors and hotels, and our beloved America runs on Dunkin Donuts. Stay tuned for a delicious conversation on the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow, everyone. Woohoo! Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4-time founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And I am so grateful you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game, because I can tell you, as a founder of 4 businesses, none of them had the same skill sets that were necessary. I mean, you have to learn and fly and get all this expertise for each type of industry you're serving. And so hearing all these wonderful different founders from different industries share their startup stories and founder journey stories helps you do better, helps you feel more assertive and grounded in your seat as a founder. And the bottom line is, as you do better, that's right, your startup's going to do better. If you're tuning in from YouTube, please click on that subscribe button right there and share this video with folks, because you have founders in your stream somewhere, in your feed, wherever you're hanging out in social. And this conversation could help someone you know have a better day, find a new solution to a problem that's been annoying the heck out of them. So thank you for doing that. And how do you know who I'm having on each show? You hop on and join the Startup Life Live meetup group. This way you'll get an alert whenever I post a new show. There could be a founder you've been dying to hear from that I'm having on, and feel free to recommend a founder to have on the show. I'm here to amplify diverse founders and diverse investors. So it's the female founder you know, or the person of color, or LGBTQ plus, or disabled founder. I love amplifying their founder journey stories because representation matters. So I have a little Andelicious advice for you today that I want to share because it's so important. I have a deep appreciation for how challenging this journey can be, right? One minute you're popping the champagne, you're feeling like such a winner, and it could just be a few hours down the road in one day, and you're crying into that champagne because how could it all go to hell in a handbasket in such a short period of time? And then, wow, 8 hours later, you're like, wow, we got through that okay, we're doing great. So I have a mindset hack I want to share with you to help you through those tough founderhood days when you're feeling, why bother, and who cares? And when you have a win, this is what I want you to do. You have a win. It could be just something very small, a tiny little win. Capture it. When you receive an Adagal or an Adaguy via a testimonial or wonderful feedback in an email, capture it, screenshot it, do something, and take these wins and put them in a file, on a Google Doc or spreadsheet, or do what I do. I put them up on a private Pinterest board. And when you're having a really tough day, review these wins. Okay, when you're struggling and you're feeling, oh gosh, what was I thinking? Go and look at all the little wins that you've had along the way. Ooh, it's going to really help you feel good. It's going to fuel your mind and your heart so that you can keep going, keep finding solutions to the problems you're facing, and help you reach the promised land for your startup. And hey, tag me when you get a win, okay? Tag me when you get a testimonial. I'm going to come by. I'll bring my pom-poms, okay? And I will cheer wildly for that win, because we're here to add wind to each other's sails. So that's just a little mindset hack and a little Andy-licious advice for you. I'm waving to all the live viewers. Thank you for tuning in live today, and replay viewers. So grateful for your time and presence, and podcast listeners. Mwah! Big love hugs for you for carving out time and tuning in today. I'm excited to introduce our guest because I've known this gentleman for, over a decade. He is pure deliciousness, and I know you're going to love him. It's the one and only Ian Kane. He's the co-founder and executive chairman of QUBIC Labs, a startup incubator and innovation hub focused on helping entrepreneurs and innovators to develop world-class companies to serve businesses, governments, and people. And Ian also serves his local community as an elected representative to the City Council in Quincy, Mass. And he's a member of the board of directors at Bay State Community Services and a member of the board of advisors at the Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Milton. Let's welcome Ian into the room with a hearty hello and welcome Ian Kane to the show.
And you're an absolute trip. I've probably watched hundreds of these, and it's just so funny to be a part of an episode now. It's such a great thing to be here, and you do such a great service. So thank you for having me on today.
Oh, thank you, Ian. Well, as I said, I've known you for over a decade. We had, it was a great connection back in the early days. But I also remember you coming to a Founders Live event when, Andy, Jack, and I had our monthly pitch events for startups. And QUBIC Labs was a twinkle in your eye. And I am so excited to see you here in the Startup Life Live show and have you share your journey, because folks, it's one thing to have the vision, but then to actually pull it together, go through the hard times, figure things out. I'm so, so happy for you, Ian.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, every day is part of that journey. We're still building. So I'm happy to share this story that started with a little glimmer.
Yep. It started with a great twinkle and a real passion to want to serve. And we're going to get all the details. Hey, guess who swung by and said hi to all of us, everybody? That's right. It's Mia Voss. And visitors and viewers and listeners know what happens when Via's in the room, right, everybody? We have to share her amazing, I want to promote Mia's incredible podcast, Shit We Don't Talk About with Mia Voss. It's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to because no one gets into those tough topics like, as my husband calls her, the voice. Mia is amazing. So thank you for swinging by today, Mia. And I'm so happy to see you, Brent from Ottawa, Canada, a loyal fan. And he's here to remind us that a seat at the table is important for our diverse members in the world. And we're really talking about neurodiversity as well as our disabled folks. Disability and neurodiversity is innovation, and Brent always reminds us to keep our hearts and minds open and hire those folks for our team members. So thank you for that, Brent. So Ian,
Yes.
Let's talk about this launch story, okay? Because you've been doing some wonderful work in the world, really building incredible skill sets, but what called you to dive into entrepreneurship, to launch QUBIC Labs and become an entrepreneur? And had you had exposure to entrepreneurs in your life? Were you that kid hustling in third grade, or products and selling and moving products at a young age? Or was it this problem that you wanted to solve?
Yeah, there's a number of parts I think that I can provide some color to. So my dad was an entrepreneur. My dad he was a small business owner when I was young. And he was a computer reseller, so he did a lot of contracts with the government, selling, sort of big computer packages and whatnot. So I always saw him. He was, as my mother would say, a workaholic and always dedicated to building. And I guess as a young person, I had a paper route when I was 9. Always had a lemonade stand. Would always figure out kind of how to build sort of that independence of having, I guess, my own income so that I could buy things that I wanted when I was a kid, when my parents wouldn't buy them for me, right? So having that sort of independence was something that was ingrained in me when I was young. And I think a lot of the conversation today will sort of intertwine between business and politics, because personally, I've always had an interest in politics, but I've always had an interest in entrepreneurship as well. And so, I went, I guess, a sort of more traditional path. After college, I went into commercial real estate for a couple of years before working for an energy-focused private equity fund where we got to cross paths, of course, and delve deeper into that story. And, I went to grad school, I got an MBA, I worked in tech for a bit, had a couple of jobs where I was focused on business valuation around private equity and venture capital firms. And then it was just after that where I thought I was taking a sort of entrepreneurship role within a cable services business, sort of low risk, but an opportunity to build a couple of new portions of an already established business. That didn't work out. It was a bad decision. I made a jump. I worked with a team that, they didn't promise me, they didn't give me what they said they were going to, promise me in order to do what I needed to do. And so I said, I'm not doing this again. I'm going to figure out my own way. And now sort of weaving into, the personal, when I decided that that wasn't the path and that I wanted to start my own thing, I had to go home and tell my partner and my fiance at the time that, hey, that money we were going to put aside for this wedding, I think we should repurpose for this, and let's get married in 3 weeks. So
shout out to your partner. What's his name?
Larry. Yeah,
Larry. Come on, Larry. That's way to support and way to go with the flow. I mean, folks, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. So when a beloved supports an entrepreneur like that, that's amazing.
It's a big part of the equation.
It really is. It really is. And I just, a shout out to Larry, but also to all the partners and spouses out there who support their entrepreneur in the family. I know it can be scary. I know it can be like watching a train wreck about to happen, but it is about pursuing dreams. And it really is an incredible opportunity for your partner and spouse and beloved to serve the world in an important way that perhaps you don't understand, but it's great. And then to the entrepreneurs out there, I have a great post on Medium called When Your Beloved is Not an Entrepreneur. And it gives you really good conversations to have, especially around the money, so that you come to it from a healthy way instead of sometimes founders, Ian, get so focused, right? They're like, if you're not part of the solution, get out of the way. And,
no comment.
So it can be tough. And our beloveds are going to love us whether we're a founder or not. So
tell me about it.
It's important. And then also to the parents out there, who are watching their children, and to your mom who, went on the journey with your dad, because, founders can have a bit of that workaholic because it's like parenting. It's really hard to take time off from it. And so I just wanted to add that little bit of Andelicious insight based on what you just said, because it's such an incredible journey. And so with all of this, how did your lived experience prepare you for what you wanted to do? And had you run for city council yet?
I had, yeah. So 2015, I first ran for city council. So when we started, in QUBIC sort of was the second iteration, or like the 6 to 12 month phase of the the entrepreneurship journey that started in 2018. But so I'd been on the council for almost 4 years or so. Yeah.
Excellent. And what because you're talking about that intersectionality, I love that word, of politics and entrepreneurship.
Yes. So
I think about
yeah.
that.
Well, the first, running for city council in my hometown, I grew up in Quincy, where I've now spent more years than I have anywhere else. And, I noticed we were working on a lot of projects that were focused on real estate development, mostly around residential. And, I always wondered why Quincy, given its position to Boston, 4 red line stops, access to all major highways, great sort of, at least at the time, more affordable real estate for residential and businesses, why we didn't share in that innovation economy that was so prevalent in Cambridge and Somerville. And so, that's sort of how the value proposition started to develop, which was, I think we need to create a space for entrepreneurship and innovation to not only create that space for folks south of Boston, but to complement this economic development activity that we're seeing solely in real estate. So, I don't want Quincy to just be a bedroom community. I want to see it thrive through commerce as well.
Right. Because it's a big town. How big is Quincy?
So about a little over 100,000.
Yeah, that is a big honking town. And folks, Boston is so startup ecosystem centric, but really having to drive from Quincy, which is a big, vast city into Boston can be a nightmare. It can be traffic. And why leave home if you can go into your wonderful city and help increase the innovation and have your startup there and get the support you need? I love that. How receptive were other folks in town with this idea?
Every single conversation I had with people was, why Quincy? And, this was the most frustrating question to receive, because I would just say, why not Quincy? Cambridge and Kendall Square and all of those areas that have become what they are today were not always like that. It took vision and commitment and partnership and investment and a lot of time to get it to that point. That wasn't just an established entity. And I also understand that Cambridge and those areas have different populations. So they've got MIT and Harvard, where the diaspora populate those areas, and they populate the businesses, and they populate the innovation economy. So we don't immediately have that going for us, but what we do have is a different quality of life, and sort of that's how we look at this. This is a clean slate for creating what we want in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation, with the right partnerships who are all collaboratively working together to see the sort of similar economic goals.
I love this something fierce, Ian, because folks, Boston isn't like number one or number two in the startup world for the US for nothing. Back in 2009, our governor, Deval Patrick, put together a governor's council to make it so. Okay. That's the governor of the state working with the mayors of Cambridge and Boston and working on making this a hub. And we got Mass Challenge going then. We got all these wealthy founders of large corporations, which we have here plenty of, to really put their time. We had Smarty Pants from all the universities, adding their wisdom. And of course, we got enough venture capitalists and angel investors to also put time to make this happen. So that's what you're doing. And Quincy, I mean, folks, the history of our nation came from Quincy, when you've got our founding fathers, but also we had a shipping industry in Quincy that was extraordinary, right, Ian?
Absolutely. No, I mean, if you go back, there's the DNA of this city is really profound. So it's as you said, the founders of this nation, John Adams, his son, who was sixth president, and John Hancock, literally who created this country. So if you want to talk about founders and entrepreneurship, that intertwined between business and politics, there it is. But yeah, we had, historically rock quarries that were mined, and we had a huge shipping industry that, built vessels for World War I and World War II, which sort of left, I mean, that's sort of part of Quincy's story as well, is that the absence of those economies at a certain point in time is what left Quincy in the place today, which is without primary industry. And then what used to be, and this is the story of all down small or large downtowns in America, is that you once had thriving retail districts that people shopped and they ate. And in the advent of malls, all those shops went to malls. And you're seeing another iteration of that with sort of the outdoor concept of malls and real estate in sort of more affluent areas. But still, it left Quincy in particular in the downtown area wanting for more. And so our recent economic resurgence, which has been new restaurants and, as I said, new residential apartment buildings, has been a good start. And,
I mentioned, folks, Dunkin Donuts. Okay. I mean, if that's your jam, this is where they started, Quincy. But they couldn't save the whole town by itself. I know it seems like they could because they're everywhere. In fact, one time, because I visited a friend in Hull all the time. Hi, Nancy J. I counted all the Dunkin Donuts from my house to her house. It's like an hour or 5 minute drive. It's like dozens.
Probably 100 of them, yeah.
But that's not enough. And I want other folks who might be thinking that they could help their community out. This is how you strengthen your local economy. It is through entrepreneurship, and it is so important. So let's talk about how you came up with this idea. What was your minimum viable product? What parts and pieces were important to you, and why did you establish it as a nonprofit versus a for-profit entity?
Sure. So it was through conversation. So the first iteration of my entrepreneurship journey was a consulting practice. It was focused on trying to help government innovate. I saw an opportunity in my role as a public servant to either connect technologies to government to make services better for constituents or to make operations better for government itself to serve people. And just through those conversations, I had a conversation with a couple of friends who were involved in the economic development activity down here. And we started to talk about how we could get more of these startups in Quincy and to sort of help with this effort. So one of our friends who became a partner in our entire operation had a real estate development company or worked with a real estate development company. And they said, hey, we've got some dormant space. If you can make use of it, go at it. And so I said, okay, we'll structure this as a nonprofit if this is going to be a contribution, and we'll look for some more partners around that effort. But we also knew that we didn't want to sell desks. We weren't trying to be a WeWork or any of these
right.
Desk models. We wanted to actually build an ecosystem and to work alongside these companies and to support them as best we can. So it literally was just a blank PowerPoint, and we said, hey, we've got this real estate. Let's offset that so we can pass on savings to entrepreneurs and give them a lower barrier of entry for having space for themselves or their teams to work collaboratively.
And what was this? How big was the space? Square feet?
14,000 square feet of office space. So this was a lot of space. And we had to be very clever about it. We hustled together a little bit of money. We hustled together some furniture. There's a nonprofit that supports nonprofits who need furniture. They come, sort of through a waste stream of big companies that are vacating own real estate footprints. And then, we just pounded the pavement selling this concept, and we found a couple of entrepreneurs. We got some local press in the Patriot Ledger. And so our first couple of members came from around the area. There were people who lived in Quincy and they lived in Milton, and people who said, this is great. I've been working at my kitchen table and I need to get out and see people, or I'm sick of going into the city and paying this much. And we were offering very low cost. We were offering $100 per person per desk for people to just as an
per month, right?
Per month, right.
Oh, folks, that's a fraction of what you pay for a coworker space. And can we just step back just a little, because to set this entity up as a nonprofit, folks, here in the U.S. to do that, it takes months to get your tax ID and prove that, but also you have to set up a board. Can you talk a little bit about that process? Because, and you knew a lot of people, and it's an ideal way to get people buying in to the organization. We saw that happen when Entrepreneurship for All was launched and all their different locations. It's great for having buy-in. How did you find folks for the board?
So John O'Keefe and I, who's my friend and co-founder of QUBIC, we decided early on that I would take this sort of executive chair position, which is on the board, still inside, but just a bit outside based on my role with the city council, and then he would take the CEO role. And there were a couple of early friends, when you're just out there socializing the concept to people, we had identified a couple of early friends that sort of fit into what we were trying to accomplish, or at least had perspective that we certainly valued in bringing on board. And so there's one gentleman who is actually a constituent in Quincy, and I had run into him, through my work on the city council, but also at a mass challenge event. And so, we told him about QUBIC. He himself was an angel investor and knew the community pretty well. And so we brought him on board, and he's happy to join us. His name's Will Weddleton. He's great. And then another friend who I had met through, just venture community and angel community named Adam Gerwitz, who came on and joined us as well. And they've been wonderful additions. So we kept the board small for sort of,
can you do that? Like how big does the nonprofit board have to be?
It can be, I think, as large as you want it to be. We intentionally kept it small just for purposes.
But you can do it with a minimum of 3 people?
You can do it with a minimum of 3 people, yeah.
I love that.
Probably do it with one. But
no kidding. No, I didn't know that.
I don't know if there's a requirement to have necessarily.
Yeah.
But,
now, this is so important because there are folks out that, will listen to this show, Ian, and will wonder, they might be sitting on the fence, for profit, nonprofit. And by understanding how you made this decision, helps other founders.
There is more to that. I mean, as I said, in this incubator model, the immediate, I guess, identification of revenue generation was a little difficult outside of raising funds through contributions from either corporations or individuals. And then I had looked at a number of interesting nonprofit models that very successfully leveraged both public and private capital under the guise of a nonprofit and a 501c3 tax exempt entity. That just was really attractive to me, especially given my political work, and then coupled with, sort of this concept of doing economic development.
Yeah, I love that. And so you got the co-working space up and running, bare bones, and with a small fee for folks to come in and have a seat and get to see other founders. Because I feel an Ande Licious moment coming on that I need to tell everybody, which is the best support group in your life as a founder are other founders, because nobody knows what you're going through like another founder. So you started getting people to show up to the space. Was there parking available?
Yeah, we had parking, which was also a benefit for people. They loved that. But yeah, we built a crew. There were about 6 companies that were ready to join us. And then everyone here knows what happens next, which is COVID. So it was March 2020. And just as soon as we were ready to go.
You can't make that stuff up. Hey, Peter. Rogella, so happy to see you here, waving across the pond. Ian is just south of Boston, and Quincy. We're both waving to you, to London. I'm so happy you're tuning in, and be sure to share your URL and your one-liner for the incredible work that you're doing in the world. And Brent, I just wanted to let you know, Ruth has our wonderful community manager who's usually here and saying hi and doing warm hugs to everybody online as they join the feed and make comments in the comment threads. It has an obligation, will not be here today, but I know she will miss seeing you, Brent, because you guys I know have nice little conversations. So COVID hits. Now, I cannot tell you how many folks I've talked to in the 220 plus conversations to date who said, they're all ready to launch and COVID hit. How did you, because this is a come be with us. Oh, wait, no, you can't come be with us. How did you manage that transition, Ian?
We were fortunate in that our overhead was low. It was minimal. So we could survive, a good portion of time. And of course, we hadn't yet brought in enough money to even pay ourselves. So, we're kind of trying to, like the rest of the world, I think everyone was either trying to understand existentially their personal existence in this world, and/or the value of their business, to the world. And so, John and I stepped back and we took some time and we looked at the landscape, and everyone's doing a podcast or a webinar, and we didn't decide to go that route. Because we quite frankly just didn't know what to say. But we let that play out for a little bit while still being able to remotely support our entrepreneurs. So the way that our early entrepreneurs came on was that we would establish a certain cadence of meeting with them. And so we followed them along the way in the early stages of COVID and navigating through that time period. Of course, there was, the PPP situation and
unfortunately in Massachusetts, we were really well taken care of.
Right.
As individuals between the state and then, of course, the Commonwealth and then the government, we were able to navigate. When did you have the doors open again for folks to come in? How long did that take?
Some folks were just like, I'm done with this by September. So by September, October, people started coming in.
Please, I got to get out of the house. The kids are driving me nuts.
I'll wear a mask or whatever. It was fine. We had so much space that people could go into corners, and there was nobody.
Perfect.
Yeah. So about September, October, people came back. But I think more importantly during that period was that it allowed us to understand a little bit more about where we were going to build value in the entrepreneurship and innovation space.
And I love that, Ian. I have founders who think, I feel so ashamed. It's been like 18 months and I'm really not getting where I need to be. I'm like, please, are you kidding? There's no race here. All right. This is, you're doing great. Some things take time, and you got a breather. You and John were able to sit back and go, okay, twiddling our thumbs and doing whatever. We can go get even deeper into our mission and our purpose and how we want to serve and better pathways. We can build relationships with more people now and get them on board so that when the window of gathering opens up again, we are actually more fully prepared. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. And even from a service offering, we started broadly focused on entrepreneurs who are building companies around financial and government technologies. We identified a sort of, I guess, nascent emerging technology that didn't yet have an ecosystem for support in the greater Boston area that we had started learning about through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in my public hat, and realized that if we wanted to stand out in this space, that we should support this community, and that community was around blockchain technology.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
And had you dabbled in blockchain before this? Had you become an expert in it, or was this your first time?
No, it was my first time. I was not an expert. I was familiar with distributed ledger technology just through sort of reading throughout the years, and distributed technology is sort of the fundamental name for what blockchain is now commonly referred to. But the Mass Tech Collaborative, which is a quasi-state agency that's run out of the Economic Development Office, out of the governor's office, they hosted an education series for local elected leaders on potential blockchain deployments within cities and towns. And that was my first real exposure to it. And through that, I guess, education series, I started meeting, technology providers and capital providers and entrepreneurs. And it was just looking like it was a distributed space that needed a unifier to support the efforts of growth. And so we just started telling a new narrative at that point, which was that, we are here to support the growth of a blockchain technology and development hub, and give Quincy a new shine at the same time, and say we're going to establish a small economic cluster with related and supported entities to support the growth of this industry.
So what does that look like? What would be a typical, in Boston, of course, we have a phenomenal fintech group here that incorporates blockchain. But how did you transfer that to Quincy and to companies that were forming or thinking about forming with blockchain as a platform for them?
Yeah. Well, as I said, one, we started coming up with the narrative and sort of the value proposition, and saying, hey, we're a new thing. But I guess the difference between us is that because, we sort of looked at our local relationships, especially with the municipality, with local educational institutions, with small and medium-sized enterprises, even the Chamber of Commerce, that there was an opportunity to make this, I guess, blockchain and digital asset technology more exemplary, and to try to connect these institutions so that it could be more exemplary to, I guess, the greater world, and people could see, hey, this is a tangible thing that will enable businesses to either operate, function, or provide value in a different way, or for themselves. And so, let's explore that. We raised a little bit of money around, we wanted to understand who was out there. So we raised a little bit of money around hosting a startup competition. And so we raised, about 20 grand, and we said, hey, we're going to give away 20 grand. And we got about 80 applicants from around the world, which was really cool to see.
That is
and
cool.
we culled that down to 7. We had, a 3-panel judge of folks from venture and from technology and from legal that judged the pitch night. One of our entrepreneurs who we had met through our networking ended up winning the competition. But it showed us, one, there's a market for this. And this was at a different time, I guess, in the life cycle of this entire space.
Right.
But it also showed some of our partners who joined us in this program that they could leverage us to help them build ecosystem around their own technologies, which is what led us to sort of the next, I guess, project or iteration where we are today.
And where is that?
So we spent a year and a half arranging a public-private partnership between Mass Tech Collaborative, a blockchain technology called Algorand, which the tech is based in Boston. It was spun out of MIT in 2018. Another private capital provider, we've got Nutter, who's providing in-kind legal, and we've got Cohn Resnick, who is supporting us through accounting. And
Excellent.
altogether, this is a $4.5 million public-private partnership that's supporting conceptual research and development, and then commercialization of blockchain concepts to be built on Algorand.
Wow. And so we're looking right now, folks who are tuning in on the podcast, we're looking at a by the numbers for QUBIC Labs. So you've had the platform, even given COVID, you've had it up for about 3 years, would you say?
All right,
Where are
so
you tracking these numbers?
Yeah, so this is the life of the project that we just launched over the last 3-4 months. So we were
Wow.
initially awarded a grant through Mass Tech Collaborative last June, and then we went through a 3-month phase where we planned a big blockchain event, which I'm happy to talk about. We're going to do it again this year, called Boston Blockchain Week. And so we formally launched the program just after Boston Blockchain Week. And so what we've been doing is demoing the rails, so to speak, with some of our closer blockchain entrepreneurs. And we're putting out now a formal call for applications for entrepreneurs to apply to become part of this program.
This is phenomenal. So let's go by the numbers from the top. Okay, take us through this.
Yeah. So 4.5 million is the total capital commitment to this project. 2 million of that is a grant from Mass Tech Collaborative. That entire grant facility will be used to support entrepreneurs in early stage conceptual research and development, mostly around developer packages. So think software, hardware, infrastructure. We established a sort of blockchain as a service infrastructure rail so that we can help entrepreneurs to more easily on-ramp onto Algorand's protocol. 2 million of that is private capital commitments that will support the post R&D commercialization or seed funding, which we'll look at, from about a $25,000 to $150,000 range with other partners, capital providers who we know in this ecosystem that support growth of Algorand projects. And then the other side of that is the commitment of the real estate, which is from Foxtrot Properties, who's been our real estate partner since the start of this project, Nutter, which is a locally based law firm, as well as for accounting. We look at the life of the project, or at least the deployment of the initial grant funds, and most likely the private funds as well, as a 3-year project. And so we'll be taking on applicants and startups and entrepreneurs on a rolling basis until our fulfillment of that capital is complete. And we have anticipated that about 15 companies will be created from this entire process, which all of those companies would endeavor to be run through our incubator program following the R&D, the commercialization phase.
Right. And then 25,000 available per startup for blockchain development, and 150,000 available per startup for seed funding post-conceptual development.
That is correct.
Wowza. And so what does funding 15 companies look like economically for Quincy?
So I think we originally looked at, it just depends on the teams and the amount of growth we see in a particular period of time, but we're measuring these things in terms of jobs and I guess revenue generation per company, capital investment that are made on top of the 150 that we might deploy in each of these. So I think, we, at least in our proposal, we probably look at somewhere around, let's say in the near term, which could be anywhere around 3 to 5 years, with, the creation of hopefully around 60 jobs or so, right?
Yeah.
And from the get-go, we sort of set out this, it's arbitrary number, but it's a very nice thing to think about, is that over a span of 5 to 10 years, we want to create around 1,000 jobs to support the local economy.
Absolutely. And also income that's going to come in and help the local economy.
And tax revenue. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not just Quincy, it's, the region, because Quincy is the hub. And then you can have a lot of what we call the South Shore towns who can also be benefited by coming into the innovation hub, plus the ripple effect. It's very hard to quantify the ripple effect, because by teaching someone how to do their business, giving them the funding, that they could then inspire someone else who may want to do a food business or may want to do something completely different, but now they are finding ways to get there as well. That has to be incredibly rewarding for you and the board and everyone involved.
Absolutely. Even just the nice thing, so we've been doing this for 3.5 years now, and to see some of our early members now see, strides of success and growth, whether that's through funding rounds or through their own revenue generation, it's been extremely rewarding. And I guess on top of that, the most rewarding aspect of it has been the collaborative efforts that you see, as you said, between founders. We really have a strong community here of true professionals. We've worked with folks that are younger and they're older, and each of those, I guess, demographics have different things to add value to, and we all seem to come together and leverage each other in appropriate ways, whether it's through for networking purposes or for strategic advice or just moral support. like the water filter, having conversations by the water filter and whatnot. But it's really just great to see everyone supporting each other, and you sort of can step back and just see it happen, and then you recognize that the thing is working.
Oh, it's so wonderful. Creating something like this, where people can actually physically come together, share their ideas, share their problems, share their innovations, get feedback, put in the pushback, and, so that they can solve those problems. So often founders get siloed, and folks tuning in, how sometimes you can feel like you're the only one who nobody understands what you're going through, and being able to mind share. And I truly believe this from my own experience, Ian, that when we can talk out loud about what we've got going on, all of a sudden, just by having that listening ear nearby, it bubbles up. The answers, the solutions just sort of come out.
Absolutely.
Whereas before they were like stuck inside us. Yeah.
You had touched, something in my mind that you had touched on earlier, just, when people started asking sort of why Quincy. But I've largely viewed this as a sort of energy project, because it's like pulling energy to a space, and it's what actually creates the fuel, or it powers the engine that's here, because you've got people. The phone now rings our way, which is cool, and people want to come down and see what we're up to.
Right. And it's easy to have an event and do some fun things. Olgie, oh my gosh, everyone, look who stopped by. Olgie, the founder of The Difference. That's the heelless shoes. And he's saying, Ande Lyons, always good seeing you and the amazing work you do. We must meet for tea before I leave for China. Ian, what you are doing is amazing, and takes some knowledge and experience to run such an incubator. This is truly a breath of fresh air for any startup.
Good.
I agree.
You're welcome down here anytime.
I agree. Yeah, I think, Olgie, you're like off 495, I think. I can't remember. But yes, I do want to see you for tea. Absolutely, before you head off to China again. I've got to make that happen. There's so many people that we've met during COVID that locally that I've met. I need to go and hug in real life. I just need to set out and do that. So this is interesting. Brent is asking, what do you think of the metaverse for the startup world, and how diverse is QUBIC Labs?
So I'm not going to be your guy to talk about metaverse.
Yeah, me neither.
Sorry to say. But
we'll have to have someone on.
Yeah, I'm happy to find a resource for you. But diversity, we've got some good diversity. Our first few founders were that we had as members were women. We've had some female teams, and I'm a person of color. Part of the LGBT community. I always say my co-founder John, he's an immigrant. He comes from Ireland, which people might not think he's the immigrant that people want to think of, but he's still an immigrant. But yeah, no, we've got all different types here represented. People.
Oh, and Brent said he meant blockchain, not metaverse. Sorry about that.
Oh, not at all. Yeah. So I think most people are following the hype of quote unquote crypto, and sort of the advent of what's going on with FTX. And I think from the get-go, we not coming into this space as an ardent follower of either Bitcoin or any of the tokens that have been created. We look at the underlying and the fundamental technology as an enabler for multiple industries, right? So we're trying to figure out how to deploy this technology with our startups and ourselves with our partners into how to create business value for different industries, and how to create that true economic value. So we still, we see a tremendous opportunity in the space to be supportive, to educate industries like asset managers, and there's a whole sort of like life sciences. There's many different industries that I don't think have necessarily even scratched the surface on what they could do with the deployment of blockchain tech. That we're really looking at. We're not just looking at Bitcoin or the crypto side of the house, but how to create not only useful applications, but products that consumers can use without having to understand and be sort of turned off because they don't understand what blockchain is.
That's right. And of course, because of cryptocurrency and all the bad messiness around that and FTX and all of that. A lot of people think just automatically throw blockchain, Bitcoin all in there. And it's going to take a little while to untangle and get everybody back onto understanding blockchain and its wonderful foundation and wonderful purpose for one planet, right?
Yeah. And I was going to say, don't, just because there's noise, everyone gravitates towards the noise. There's a lot of people with their heads down building. And, when those people either rear their head or you see a successful product, service, or company come out, don't be surprised, because I think that's the trajectory for a lot of people who are looking at the mistakes that have been made in the prior two cycles of this, emerging tech. And they're going to apply it to very good use and more institutional or sort of enterprise use today and going forward.
I'm very excited about it. So as a founder, a co-founder, what's a mistake or two that you were like, whoa, that kind of set you back a little, but ended up informing you going, oh, okay, now we're over here. And it could have been it could have been COVID. I mean, that could have been the whole, what the ever, loving, didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
but,
well, nobody saw that, but we certainly learned from it. And interestingly, it worked out positively for us.
Yeah.
Like, in the scheme of things. We have learned a lot about people and hiring. I guess, we are not as rich in resources as we will become. But so, in our travails, we have, we've hired people for certain things, and we've learned a lot about, I guess, the what do you call it? The labor market or
and the vicissitudes of hiring. Because folks, you're a founder. You think somebody looks good on paper, they interview great, you get them on board, and you're like, what was I thinking?
Right. And because we don't have all the time in the world to interview a million candidates, sometimes you're taking word of mouth recommendations, and sometimes those word of mouth recommendations don't amount to what they're sold as. And, unfortunately, that costs you. It costs you time. It costs you money, because you have to figure out how to refoot to either fill that role or to adequately meet those tasks that you thought that person was going to fulfill. And so we've learned a lot there, and we'll take those lessons going forward for sure. And we've learned a lot about. I want to say it's both partnership and competition, because sometimes you could approach something with very good intentions of collaboration and wanting to, or believing that you're achieving the same purposeful ends through relationships, and that's not always the case, I think, and that falls down into incentive alignment and personal and professional goals and ambitions. That you might not be able to immediately understand or foresee when you're trying to navigate that territory with anyone that you might want to work with. So we've learned a lot there. And so, so those are the two.
It's not easy to articulate. I mean, you have an idea based on your lived experience to date, but you hadn't been in the founder's seat for so long. So, folks, I just want to do a big round of applause for Ian and his incredible founder journey. Let's just, everybody clap it. That founder journey advice is so important, because so many of you founders who are listening right now, you know how hard you are on yourself. Oh, I was such an idiot. Why did I keep that person on for a year? You're not an idiot.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know. And that especially applies to talent. And those of you founders who did nail it on the talent, you know how gosh darn fortunate you were. Like, oh, wow, I did that. It's part of this whole roller coaster ride, this journey and founderhood. The talent is so hard to figure out. So thank you for sharing that with us, Ian.
Of course.
Oh gosh. And I know that you just taught so many other founders to lighten up on themselves, because it is not an easy thing to articulate, folks, as you move forward. So you've done some wonderful shout outs for folks who have helped you and added wind to your sails, from your partner, Larry, to your parents, to your co-founders, etc. what does success look like for you? And as you look around, is it a feeling? Is it an outcome? I mean, I know you've got some great numbers that you're going to be using to measure the success of QUBIC Labs, but what is your definition, and whose measuring tape are you using, Ian? Are you using yours or that wonderful mythological measuring tape of Startupville?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've put up these posts of it's jobs created, it's revenue generated, it's amount of capital raised. Those are sort of the numbers that we'll be measuring the success of our organization as companies come through. But what success looks like for us is really having a robust mechanism to support the growth of entrepreneurs on a regular basis. We've been gladly supported through our real estate partners, Fox Arc Properties, which is a locally based real estate development company. And, I would love to see us grow in our footprint, so that we can have a more dedicated innovation ecosystem for startups to, aptly grow into real estate as they grow, and they can stay nearby. And then we build on those cluster effects that we're seeking to gain through our sort of economic development plan. And, what I would really like to see is this, ecosystem concept of related and supported businesses come to life. I want to see the curriculum tied to local area institutions that are then populating some of the businesses that we're creating, and they're helping those companies grow. I want to see, more deployment of technology in government, and that we are seeking to, and helping enable that. I want to see this concept permeated through the institutions that we've envisioned from the start.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to get out the clappers for that. That's a beautiful, beautiful vision, and so important for the topic that we're talking about, which is strengthening the local and regional economy through entrepreneurship. You just put the blueprint out for anybody else who wanted to do this. I don't know, LinkedIn doesn't always share who the person is, but we're going to say, so very proud, onward and upward, Ian.
That's my dad.
Oh, Dad. Mr. Cain. Thank you for that. Let me tell you, parents are so important on this journey in helping us feel connected and supported in ways that it can be hard. Now you've been a founder, right? A co-founder, an entrepreneur for 3 to 4 years. How has this journey served you both professionally and personally? I mean, it's an extraordinary personal development program, right?
Oh yeah, it's wild. It's actually pretty wild, especially because I'm a person that is very self-reflective. I take a lot of time to understand where I've come from, where I'm going, why I'm here, and this has been, I guess, the most informative, 3-4 years that I've ever been on, and it's colored every aspect of my life because once you take that leap to, I guess, take charge of your own professional existence, you just realize how well it tests your ability to be creative, it tests your ability to be intuitive, and you really it teaches you how to prioritize as well. And you figure out, you can determine what's important in your life. So, it's been great. I feel like I'm in just about to enter the next phase of sort of that growth and where we're going here and just in life generally. So it is extremely rewarding. If you don't have the stomach for it, it helps you build it, I suppose, because there are nights where you challenge your existence. Why am I doing this? Can I do this? What do I have to do next? How do I get out of this? How do I make this happen? So, there are so many different.
You nailed them all, Ian, right there. It's, and folks, that's why your why has to be so important, so that you can conquer your fears. You hear that meme a lot. Your why, your purpose behind your business has to be greater than the fear that would normally keep you from ever trying something. And right, Ian, that is what helps get you.
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
Just exercise.
Yes.
Exercise or punch things or do something to channel the energy.
That's right. Whatever works for you. And again, the founder support group, tell us how folks can continue. You can see the banner here, everybody, and I'll have the links to QUBIC Labs in the show notes and how to follow everything online. What final words would you like to share with everybody before I pop you into the green room and wrap up our delicious conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is about founder journeys, and it's about, I think, taking that next step for most of you out there. If you at all have the, that spark inside of you and you're contemplating becoming an entrepreneur, don't let it diminish. You have to really cultivate that feeling, and you should let it grow, or you should pursue it, or try to understand more about it, because you might regret it, and you don't want that. And there's probably something that you have value to add. And even if you try and it doesn't work, it will take you to where you're supposed to be. I can promise you that.
Hold on, everybody. You know what that just was, right? Stitch that on a pillow. 100%. Even if you fail, you win. Because
I'm going to start a pillow business now.
Don't get Jeremy started from .red. Oh my gosh, he's been like, Ande, the pillows, please. We'll figure that out. Ian, so wonderful to have you on the show. You dove deep into so many aspects of how you're serving the world with your beautiful business and nonprofit and innovative center, incubator, how you're serving founders both emotionally and spiritually and financially to help them grow and help your region get a more solid footing, because entrepreneurship is the best way to enhance a community and region and create jobs. And I want to remind folks, what Ian is doing with QUBIC Labs is something you can do in your town. And remember, you don't have to be a unicorn. You can employ 1 or 2 people in your community. That ripple effect is so powerful, right, Ian?
Absolutely. And it's empowering. It gives people agency that they might not have had before, but giving people the opportunity to chart their own paths and to take control of their own existence is a very powerful thing.
It's very powerful. And so and with QUBIC Labs, someone's holding your hand while you're doing it. So those locally, be sure to check out QUBIC Labs as well. Ian, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to pop you into the
Thank you, Ande. So good to be here.
Can't wait to hug you in real life again. It's just so delicious. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I get so excited when I see someone who's so on purpose like Ian Kane and what he's doing with his co-founder, John, with QUBIC Labs. It's so empowering, and it gives, a chance to add wind to people's sails. And you know how I feel about this, folks. You always win when you launch a business, no matter what happens, right? You're going to up your skill set. And if a business doesn't work out, you're going to take that skill set and launch another business, because I know you've got innovative ideas in the queue. Or you're going to take it to your next gig, and they're going to be so thrilled that you're such an incredible addition to their team. So let me share with you who is coming on the show next. There's no show on Friday, February, whatever date that would have been. But the next show is February 28th with Lee Rubin. And Lee is the co-founder and CEO at Confetti, and she's a visionary culture leader with a decade of experience in B2B sales, and she's one of the world's experts on remote event planning. And under her leadership, get this, Confetti scaled from 0 to 12 million in annual revenue within 2 years, using only 2.5 million in funding. He's got a lot of good stories for us. How do you know? Whenever I post a new show, you join the Startup Life Live meetup group. Links are in the show notes, or you can scan that QR code. And I'm always here, usually on Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. ET. Until next time, I'm just going to leave you with this. Promise me you'll remember you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem. And as we say here in Boston, and while we're drinking our Dunkin Donuts, you're wicked smarter than you think. You've got this. Cheers, everyone. Wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Mwahs.